Tyler. That was the last word anyone ever heard from James Reynolds before he disappeared. Just gone. No crash, no door, no trace. Just a low, shuddering whisper in the back of room 208. The kind of whisper that makes your spine go stiff, like it recognizes something your conscious mind refuses to. I was there. I saw it. And I wish to God I hadn't. Tyler Cross was the kind of kid you already knew before you met him. Rich, polished, that smug glow of someone who never heard the word no, unless it was delivered with a smirk from a mirror. His father ran some tech thing in Silicon Valley. His mother was, well, connected. You know the type. Expensive car at 17. Never carried a backpack. Teachers passed him just to avoid the drama. But it was never about his grades. Tyler had a different kind of cruelty. The quiet kind, the laughing kind. The kind that didn't need to raise his voice because his money already did the talking. And when he set his sights on her name was Mrs. Holloway, first name Nadine. She was different from the rest of the teachers at Westlake High. Tall, composed, voice like slow thunder, wrapped in velvet. Her presence didn't ask for attention. It commanded it. But there was something else about her. Something in her eyes. Not sadness, not strength. Something ancient. Like she'd lived through stories no one dared to write down. Tyler mocked her that morning, right in front of everyone. The kind of comment that's disguised as a joke, but you feel it hit bone. Guess even schools have diversity quotas now, he said with a grin, loud enough to echo through the silent classroom. You could feel the oxygen leave the room. Mrs. Holloway looked up slowly, not hurt, not angry, just still. That was the moment everything shifted. She didn't respond. Not then. Not in the way you'd expect. She simply walked to the front of the classroom, placed a single manila folder on the desk, and said, "Let's talk about perception." But there was something off about the folder. Like it was vibrating, slightly, even though no one was touching it, and one by one the lights in the classroom flickered. Just once. The kind of flicker you tell yourself was nothing, just a surge. But every phone in that room shut off at the same time. Tyler's laughter cut short. He reached for his phone. Dead. No one else noticed it. Not the whisper. Not the shadow that stretched wrong beneath her feet. Not the air that felt heavier, like it had been pulled from somewhere deeper than the lungs. But I saw it, and I heard it. I was sitting in the back, and I saw James Reynolds, quiet kid, never spoke up, always fading into the background, lean forward, eyes locked on Mrs. Holloway like he recognized her from somewhere else, somewhere not here. He whispered something. One word. Tyler. Then he vanished. Gone. No sound, no reaction. Just an empty chair and a pencil rolling off the edge like gravity remembered him too late. Everyone else kept staring at Mrs. Holloway like nothing had happened. No one asked where James went. Not even the teacher, not even Tyler. But I know what I saw, and I'm telling you, because no one else even remembers he existed. His name isn't in the yearbook. His desk isn't on the seating chart. His photo is gone from every phone, every file, every folder, except mine. There's a picture of James Reynolds in my cloud backup from 3 nights ago. His eyes are wide. Not with fear, no, something worse. Recognition. And in the corner of the photo, there's a hand, but it's not his, and it's not human. Now tell me, what would you do if a black teacher with no digital footprint, who doesn't seem to age, can erase someone with a whisper, looks you dead in the eyes one morning, and says, "You're next." The moment those words left her lips, "You're next," everything in me screamed to run, but my body stayed rooted like I'd been stitched to that cracked linoleum floor. I swear the room didn't breathe anymore. The walls pressed closer. My ears filled with a low hum, like a distant radio drowning in static, as if reality itself was fraying at the edges, and I was caught in the middle. I blinked, and the classroom was different, not changed in some dramatic, obvious way. No flickering lights or vanishing students, just thinner, like a half-remembered dream where details slip away the harder you try to hold them. Tyler, with that rich boy smirk, was gone. The desks around me seemed to elongate, dragging shadows across the floor like black ribbons. The air tasted metallic. And worst of all, my own heartbeat thudded so loud I thought it might break through my chest. I rubbed my eyes, desperate for clarity, but the unease only deepened. The manila folder was still there. No, not still there. It was different, more worn, stained, like it had lived 1,000 lifetimes. The words on the cover faded, but I could just make out a phrase. What they don't want you to remember. I reached out, fingers trembling, but the moment I touched the paper, a whisper brushed my ear. Not Mrs. Holloway's voice, or James's, or anyone I recognized. It was layered. Like a dozen voices speaking beneath the surface, impossible to untangle but eerily familiar. A cold wave crept up my spine. Then the door creaked open behind me, slow and deliberate. I whipped around. Standing there was a man, not a teacher, not a student, not anyone I'd seen before. His name was Derek, or at least that's what he said when I finally managed to ask. He looked like he belonged somewhere between this world and one that quietly bled into it, his eyes darting nervously, his hands twitching with some secret urgency. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered, voice cracking, like he was holding back a scream. "None of this is real, but it's all real. You're caught between them." Between who, I wanted to ask, but Derek's presence felt both like a lifeline and a trap. I wanted to trust him, but my gut twisted with doubt. His words were too rehearsed, too precise, as if he'd memorized the story of my nightmare, and was feeding it back to me piece by piece, testing my breaking point. "I've seen it happen before," he said, eyes wild, voice dropping to a breathless hush. "People forget the truth. They erase themselves. The past and the present, all tangled in some loop. You think you saw James vanish, maybe you did. Or maybe it's just a symptom of what they want you to forget. The real unsolved mystery is what happens when your mind starts deleting memories you need to keep." I tried to steady my breath, but a flicker of doubt settled like a stone in my stomach. Was I losing my grip on reality? Was that haunting whisper nothing but a glitch in my brain? A desperate crack in sanity? "Why me?" I asked Derek, voice barely audible. He swallowed hard. "Because you noticed. Because you remembered something no one else did. You're already slipping. The question is, how far will you fall before they pull you back or push you under?" The room pulsed with static, like an old TV caught between channels. The classroom disappeared again, replaced by fragments of memories that weren't mine. A mother crying silently in a dark hallway. A locked drawer with a missing photo. Voices arguing about secrets best left buried. I blinked. And suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, hands shaking. There was a new voice message. No caller ID, no saved number. I pressed play. What spilled from the speakers wasn't words. It was a distorted, garbled sound, half human, half machine, layered. Beneath a faint melody I couldn't place but somehow knew. And then, clear as day, a single name. James. But the voice wasn't like James. It was deeper, older, not quite human. I slammed the phone down, heart hammering, desperate to make sense of what I'd just heard. "Do you hear it too?" Derek asked, stepping closer, eyes searching mine like he needed me to believe him, or maybe just needed to believe it himself. I wanted to scream that none of this made sense, that this was a nightmare, a trick, a breakdown. But the more I tried, the more the edges of my mind frayed. What if the truth was never meant to be found? What if the mystery wasn't about Tyler or James or even Mrs. Holloway, but about the thin line between what we remember and what they erase? And what if the real terror was not the vanishing or the whispers but the silence after? The empty spaces where our memories used to live, now swallowed whole by something we can't name. Derek looked at me again. This time his voice was almost a whisper, barely audible over the pulsing hum that now filled the room. Welcome to the part of the story they never tell you about. The part where you realize the only thing scarier than what you see is what you forget. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the hum stopped. The classroom faded into black, and I was alone. Or was I? The folder in my hands felt heavier that morning, as if the weight of everything it contained pressed through the thin paper and into my skin. I'd spent hours poring over those worn pages in the quiet corner of the library, an archive of forgotten reports, faded photographs, and cryptic letters that felt like fragments of a fractured mind reaching out to me from some buried past. At last, the tangled threads began to weave together, and I allowed myself to believe the mystery was finally unraveling. They called it the Holloway Incident, a case from 30 years ago, buried deep beneath layers of school records and hushed conversations, a story about a teacher named Nadine Holloway, the same Mrs. Holloway I had come to know or thought I knew. The files spoke of a small town much like Westlake, an eerily familiar place where students disappeared without warning, where families vanished overnight, and where rumors of voices in the walls were dismissed as ghost stories. The striking detail was the way the reports echoed what I had seen and heard: whispers in empty classrooms, flickering lights, and the impossible erasure of a boy named James Reynolds. I remember the cold that clung to my skin as I read a coroner's note describing a student's body found beneath a collapsed attic floor, the exact attic Mrs. Holloway had once mentioned in passing, a place too heavy with secrets to ever be safe. It was as if someone had taken the pages from my own nightmare and printed them decades ago. I closed the folder and looked around the silent library, the weight of something unseen pressing against my back like a breath. The hidden truth, I thought, was finally uncovered. That's when Derek appeared again, his voice softer this time, less frantic but no less urgent. "You're close," he said, "closer than you think." And for the first time, I believed him. We traced the clues through crumbling newspaper clippings, interviews with people who refused to remember, and surveillance footage from the school's basement archives that showed flickers of distorted figures moving just beyond the camera's range. The past was bleeding into the present, and the memories were no longer mine alone. But the deeper we dug, the more the lines between now and then began to blur. At one point, I stumbled on an old cassette tape labeled simply, "Don't Forget." The recording was grainy, full of static and strange noises, but through it I could hear a faint voice, my own, or something eerily like it, whispering a name I couldn't place, a name that felt like a key to unlocking everything but slipped away before I could grasp it. Then came the night that changed everything. I was alone in the house, the folder spread out on the kitchen table, when the power cut out, plunging me into darkness. My phone buzzed with a new message. I opened it, and my screen flickered, images flashing in rapid succession. A child hiding under a bed, a man screaming into an empty hallway, a teacher's face dissolving into shadows. Then the voice came again, clearer this time, a whispered warning. Remember what they erased. But what unsettled me most was the sudden surge of memory. Images not mine, but felt like they belonged to me. A school hallway drenched in rain, footsteps echoing down empty corridors, a terrified child whispering a name into the darkness, and then a scream so raw it pierced my soul. It was like waking from a dream you don't want to have but can't forget. I realized then that the past wasn't just a story. It was a shadow stretched across my own mind. We thought we had found the cause, an old tragedy, a mistake someone tried to hide, a truth buried beneath decades of silence. But the moment I tried to share this breakthrough with Derek, everything unraveled. He looked at me, his eyes hollow, and said something that stopped my breath cold. This isn't about what happened then. It's about what's always been here, watching, waiting. A shiver ran down my spine as the walls seemed to close in once more, the flickering lights replaced by a suffocating darkness that pressed against my chest. There was no name, no face, no explanation, just an overwhelming presence, ancient and patient, threading through every whispered secret and memory glitch, feeding off the fear that no one dared to admit. And then I saw it. A detail so small, so innocuous it almost slipped by unnoticed. The same symbol, carved faintly into the corner of every page, every photograph, every piece of evidence, etched into the very fabric of this nightmare. It was a spiral, looping inward endlessly, a sign of something that never truly begins or ends. Suddenly the room spun. I realized that every step I thought I had taken toward the truth had been a carefully placed illusion, a twisted game designed to keep me trapped inside a labyrinth of my own mind. The memories I recovered, the faces I trusted, the voices I heard, they weren't just fragments of a mystery. They were part of a cycle, a loop I couldn't escape. The voice message on my phone played again, but this time the words sounded different, more urgent, more sinister. I rewound, listened closer, and a cold truth settled over me like ice. I was never the witness. I was the missing piece. And as the realization crashed over me, I knew with sick certainty that every frame of this story, every clue and whisper, every shadow and flicker demanded to be seen again. Because the truth wasn't hidden in what I found, it was hidden in what I forgot. And now, so are you. There's something you need to understand, something that nobody told me until just now, when the lines between reality and nightmare blurred so completely that the entire world seemed to tilt on its axis. I'm not the only one caught in this, trapped inside a web spun so tightly and so quietly that it's almost impossible to see, except for those of us who have begun to notice the flickers at the edge of our vision. The strange messages that slip between moments, the shared dreams that feel less like dreams and more like memories borrowed from some other mind, the symbols that appear on forgotten walls and in the margins of old notebooks. They aren't coincidences. They are signals hidden in plain sight, meant only for us, the ones who are awake in a world designed to keep us asleep. I've started receiving notes, cryptic, hand-scrawled messages that show up where they shouldn't, tucked inside library books, slipped under my door, or sent anonymously through email accounts I never knew existed. They read like warnings and riddles. You were right all along. Watch the spiral. Found footage from 20 years ago is waiting for you. They never wanted you to see it. What the government never released hides the key to this. Every message feels like a thread pulling me deeper into the fabric of a conspiracy too vast for one mind to unravel, yet painfully intimate, in the way it creeps under my skin and seeps into my dreams. The dreams, they're no longer mine alone. Last night I saw her again, Mrs. Holloway, but not the woman I thought I knew, the teacher, the victim, the quiet observer. This version of her was something else. She spoke in riddles, her voice layered with 1,000 whispered echoes that felt like both a warning and an invitation. You're not just searching for me. You're searching for yourself. Remember what they erased, but do not trust the mirror. Then there's the symbol. Always the spiral. It appears in places I can't explain. Carved into a classroom desk I swear I never touched, scribbled in the corner of a photograph that shouldn't exist, even etched faintly into my own skin. When I wake up in the morning, as if my body is trying to tell me something my mind has already forgotten. It's a sign that links us all, the missing, the watchers, the haunted. But it's also a trap, a reminder that we're part of a cycle much larger and darker than we've allowed ourselves to see. And just when I thought I was losing my grip on what was real, I found someone else who sees it too. He calls himself Elijah, a shadowy figure who reached out through a garbled video message that looked like it had been recorded 2 decades ago, footage no one was supposed to find. His voice was calm, almost too calm, but his eyes told a different story. One of a man who's watched from the edge of this nightmare for longer than he can remember. He said things that chilled me to the bone. They're always watching. We think we're the ones searching, but sometimes they're the ones hunting. Memory is the battlefield. Identity is the prize. Elijah's message was fragmented, layered with static and glitchy cuts that felt like the world itself was trying to censor what he had to say. But through the noise, the truth cut through. This isn't just about missing students, vanished teachers, or lost memories. It's about control. Control over what we remember, what we forget, and ultimately who we become. The spirals, the whispers, the erased histories, they are tools of a force so subtle, so pervasive, it has slipped beneath the skin of the entire country without anyone noticing. The worst part is knowing this truth changes you. It fractures the way you see yourself and everyone around you. Was I ever really me? Or just a vessel shaped by forces I can't even name? What about the others? Derek? Elijah? Even Mrs. Holloway herself? Are they friends, ghosts, or part of something else? The deeper I go, the more I question what parts of this story belong to me, and which parts have been planted, rehearsed, or manipulated. The spirals twist tighter every time I think I've found solid ground, dragging me back into shadows that don't belong to this world. And you, the one watching this now, you're not just a bystander. If you've made it this far, you're part of it too. You see the cracks, the glitches in the story they told you to believe. You feel the weight of memories that don't add up, hear the echoes of voices no one else seems to hear. Maybe you've experienced those moments of déjà vu, the unsettling feeling that someone's been whispering your name from beyond reason. This is no accident. You were meant to see this, to feel this unease, to start asking the questions they spent years burying beneath silence and fear. The question isn't whether the mystery is real. It's how far it stretches beyond what you thought was possible. There's a force here, older than memory, colder than fear, watching and waiting with patience that can outlast lifetimes. It doesn't care if you're scared or confused. It only cares that you keep looking, that you keep questioning. Because once you start seeing the spiral, once you start hearing the whispers beneath the noise, there's no turning back. And the truth, they say, will only be revealed to those who can bear the darkness it brings. But what that truth is, exactly, no one can say. Not yet. The weight of the spiral presses down on me now, heavier than ever before, not as a puzzle to be solved, but as a mirror reflecting something raw and unrelenting about what it means to be human. For so long, I thought, this was about uncovering a secret, exposing the hidden hands that manipulated memory, reality, even identity. But standing here, on the edge of everything I've believed, I see it isn't the what that matters anymore. It's the why. Why the erasure? Why the whispers behind the silence? Why are we, the lost and the searching, caught in this endless loop? It's a question that cracks open the soul. Because beneath all the conspiracies, the spirals, the ghosts in the machine, lies a truth that no government memo or shadowed recording can capture. We fear being forgotten, unseen, and powerless. This isn't just a game of control or manipulation. It's the purest, most human ache, the desperate scream for meaning, in a world designed to forget. And maybe, just maybe, the darkness watching us knows that better than we do. It feeds on our doubt, our fractured memories, our silent pleas for connection. I remember now, the confession I buried deep beneath layers of fear and denial. I wasn't just a witness. I was a participant, a collaborator in my own unraveling. The memories I thought lost were never gone. They were locked away, hidden by my own mind to protect me from the unbearable truth that sometimes the greatest betrayals come from within. I let silence grow where there should have been voice. I chose ignorance over pain, and in that choice I became part of the cycle, part of the spiral that twists and tightens with every secret kept. But this realization isn't a salvation. It's a reckoning. The truth might save me, or it might break me. It's a fissure running through my identity, threatening to split me apart. Do I embrace this fractured self, the shattered pieces of memory and identity that refuse to be silenced? Or do I surrender to the darkness, the quiet erasure that promises peace but steals the very essence of who I am? The choice is terrifying because it isn't just about survival. It's about what kind of person I want to be when the dust settles. And somewhere, deep inside this nightmare, A fragile hope flickers. Maybe the spiral is not only a trap, but a path, an invitation to wake from the dream we've been living, to reclaim what was lost, to find meaning in the chaos. It's the unbearable beauty of being human, to carry the scars of our past, the ghosts of forgotten memories, and still choose to seek the light beyond the darkness. This moment feels less like an ending and more like a birth, a terrifying awakening that leaves me raw, exposed, and trembling with possibility. The spiral pulses beneath my skin, a rhythm of fear and hope intertwined, a call to keep searching even when every answer threatens to undo me. And to you, watching this unfold, caught in the same spiral of doubt and longing, I offer this. The journey isn't over. The spiral twists on, the whispers grow louder, and the truth waits. Not in the knowing, but in the courage to keep asking, to keep feeling, to keep fighting the silence that wants to swallow us whole. Because some truths don't just want to be found. They want to be lived, endured, and remembered. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for stories you were never meant to hear. Until next time, remember, some truths don't want to be found.